I built a complete replacement for Apple Photos after I got so frustrated with it seeming to only do one thing well, which is discourage me from deleting my photos. So I started with a pro-level culling workflow, and then I expanded it to solve other problems, like using RAW and log video processing, which solves another lifelong problem of mine, which is an obsession with getting good color in my photos and videos, which up to now meant I could really only use Fujifilm cameras. Now I get to choose from other makes as well. The amazing thing is I used AI to do all the hard work, so I could actually get this done in my spare time. I solve complex problems through software design for a living. In this video, I'm going to share what happened when I applied that mindset to making a better version of Apple Photos. By the end of this video, you'll know what's possible when you build software for your own requirements and exactly what makes for a great photo management toolkit. The difference between what I've built here and Apple Photos is really startling. I'm not trying to sell you this software. I'm using it as an example of what's possible when you vibe code your own tools. But I do make these scripts available to master level members on this channel if you want to use it as a starting point for your own work. But let's start by looking at performance. It would be really easy to assume a bit of DIY software would struggle in terms of performance. When you're dealing with thousands of photos though, I find there's nothing worse than odd delays when switching between images or punching into 100%. The reality is, with a bit of thought, it's possible to make something mind-blowingly performant. The amazing thing is, this performance can be experienced even on really old hardware when using this over a local network. Images switch the instant I hit my arrow keys, and I can punch into 100% also instantly. This is possible thanks to preloading and thumbnail generation. Whenever I select a thumbnail, the interface downloads the next set of 100 images into the browser's memory. So as I flick through, I get that instant response. And we even load the next and previous 2 images into real DOM elements, so there's literally no delay when skipping through images with the arrow keys. One of the issues I have with Apple Photos when it runs in local non-iCloud mode is it has this horrible delay when you delete images. My tool has a marking mechanism which simply and instantly adds a file name to a JSON list that can be used to delete images properly using a script later. This is a great combination of respecting the file-based reality of my photo storage while allowing for an insanely fast culling workflow. More on that in a second. A big part of speed and performance for me is a powerful keyboard-focused workflow. So many of Apple's consumer level software neglects keyboard shortcuts. So for this, I've set up things to be wonderfully keyboard based. Left and right arrow keys to move the selection, then spacebar to cycle through full screen, then 100%, and in 100% mode you can just pan around the image with the mouse. A very simple but effective way of browsing your library. Then I can toggle my sidebars with G and M, Q to go backwards towards the grid mode, P and F to pick and finalize in my culling process, and O to show and hide the face detection boxes. So no modifiers needed. With this tool, I wanted to set something up that let me use my file system first and foremost. I wanted a gallery to always be represented by a folder of files. This would let me easily work with those files. Things like sharing and batch operations are so easy in the file system. I also wanted my galleries to be disposable and not actually use up any more space on my hard drive. And it turns out hard links are pretty perfect for this. Each image in a gallery is a hard link to the original image in my master image folder. The cool thing is the power I have to create these galleries. I have a simple command palette that lets me create galleries based on quick string matching. And this can be based on a date, detected faces, or even camera metadata like model and what lens. And this is a real cornerstone of the workflow possible with this tool, and it works really well. One feature I do think is very useful in Apple Photos is its ability to organize photos by who's in them. I didn't actually think this was going to be possible with a quick DIY solution, but it turns out it is, and it works incredibly well. When I first run this on my library, I get a nice little UI to label the faces or assign faces to existing people. And that last point is super important because the more images you add to a person, the more accurate the detection becomes. With this tool, I have full control over all the parameters that are used to cluster faces, and it's incredibly good. I wanted this tool to work just as well with video as it does with stills. It makes thumbnails for videos when it imports them, and I can choose to make galleries with or without videos included. One thing I added to this that I think is especially amazing is a one-click LUT processing pipeline. I've started using the Cobalt imaging LUTs with this, which lets me convert Vlog from my Lumix S9 to colors that are extremely close to Fujifilm and forms a major part of making color no longer a part of the camera buying choice for me. This is all based on the idea of proxy files. The original is always kept, but the library just switches the display version to the created proxy. I can even switch between them on demand to compare. Further improvements to this might be to add automatic transcripts and face detection from stills from the videos, so I can use that data to create galleries from clips with more control, as well as make clips searchable by text phrases. And these are definitely all very possible additions. It's very exciting to think about software like this. Any improvement you can think of, you can just build in as time goes on. I've always been quite interested in a pipeline for managing RAW and JPEG images in a library workflow. In fact, Apple Photos, I think, manages this really well, even though a lot of people seem to be quite confused by it. The problem is, though, is focus on manual adjustments to images, which for a personal photo library of thousands of images, I think is mostly just a waste of time. What I want from a RAW pipeline is the ability to use professionally created profiles to get great looking images with no messing about. Again, I'm using the Cobalt imaging profiles here, and this lets me get the amazing Fujifilm colors from any camera with just a few clicks. And I can do this on batches of photos too. And I've set up exposure controls and shadow lifting and a local contrast option as well, just to give me that power when I'm working with the RAW processing. The way this feature works is really elegant. The goal is simply to use a RAW plus JPEG pair in the library, which is always treated as a single image, and then use the JPEG for its display. And then I can reprocess the RAW to create a new JPEG. This is stored in addition to the original JPEG, so I can easily switch back and forth or change my version of the JPEG with different settings. I've also added a crop tool to easily allow a crop on the generated JPEG as well. The main catalyst for me to even build this tool in the first place was to fix the total lack of any serious culling tool in Apple Photos. This is really what this tool is all about. The biggest problem I have in my library is thousands of duplicates, and most of these come from simply taking lots of attempts at the same shot. As I discussed in the first video in this series, the problem with a library without culling is twofold. It's terrible for the sense of enjoyment you get from managing your library, and it's terrible for your iCloud storage bill. So the goal is quite simple. Firstly, it should be super fast to mark an image for deletion, and secondly, we should have a side-by-side pick candidate mode to quickly select a batch of images that should only be one from a burst or attempt at a single shot, and then marking one as a potential pick, and then a side-by-side view to see if any of the others might be better. And then when I'm happy I selected the best one, a simple keyboard shortcut finalizes the process and marks all but the pick in that selection for deletion. It's simple and fast and extremely effective at allowing for ultra confident culling. I can take 2,000 images down to a few hundred in about half an hour to an hour, and that's just amazing. This is a simple tool in principle, and it is the difference between confident and fast culling of duplicate images. This is the way it should be done, rather than Apple's approach of just using AI to pick what it thinks is the best, but still keeping everything else in your iCloud anyway. I've always been interested in small text-based input interfaces like Butler, Spotlight, and a long time ago Quicksilver on the Mac, and I wanted to experiment with something like that in my tool here. Especially given the main role of this tool is to display images, it seemed like a nice way of hiding multiple UI functions from the main view. I can bring this up just by hitting slash on the keyboard, and then I can use a quick text match to choose from the first set of functions. When the functions require further text input, it then allows for that to be typed in the same space after making that first selection. I can trigger all kinds of functions from here, including the actual deletion of my marked rejects, processing of new images, viewing stats, or creating galleries from my powerful string matching. One of the best things about this software is how it works over a network. A natural byproduct of using Python web servers with HTML front ends is that any device on the network can access the software in the same way. It's hard to overstate the significance of this in a landscape where big tech has tricked us into thinking we need cloud subscriptions to share our experience on our own devices even when they're on the same network at home. The real beauty of this is not only does it allow any of my Macs to work in the same way, because we already have this wonderfully established convention that is the web browser. The software works even across platforms, from anything from a small iPhone through to an iPad or any other Windows or Linux machine. For devices that don't have keyboards, I simply added a little toolbar that recreates the keyboard shortcuts from the desktop version. One final icing on the cake feature is to display a little log feed from all of the script output from the API. Given we know all the heavy lifting is done using command line scripts behind the scenes, it's really nice to see a little log of the output progressing away as we work with the tool. I've always loved log scrolling on screens, and this seems a brilliant and useful addition to the tool. All in all, I'm so thrilled with this photo tool. It brings the joy of a curated library back into my hands after decades of neglect, while simultaneously putting me and my file system back in charge of my own data and breaking me free from having to pay for cloud subscriptions for storage and a pleasant cross-device device experience. In addition to this, the seamless RAW and log processing completely removes the criterion of good color from my camera selection process, which is absolutely huge. So the question is it time you started making your own software too? This was the third video in a series where I'm looking at how AI is democratizing the command line in a way that empowers us as individuals and lets us build our own software, resulting in more freedom to break free from big tech, walled gardens and ecosystems. The first video looked at the problem with Apple Photos I set out to solve. The second video looked at the basic concepts I used to build the software. And in this video, I've looked at the specific features I added to the software from a design and workflow perspective. The next video in the series is going to look in more detail from a technical perspective at how I used Claude Code to build these features, leveraging the power of many amazing open source libraries. So make sure you subscribe with notifications to not miss it. So many thanks to members on this channel. As always, your support is so appreciated. It's amazing to see so many of you coming on board, especially at the master level, which is of course the way to get the full up-to-date version of these scripts and tools that I work on for this channel. And members of all levels get access to my Zettelkasten Notes Vault, which is sort of research and ideas and all the things that I talk about on this channel, and many things that I haven't yet got around to as well. So there's something for everyone on every level. I'd love to know what you think on this DIY AI software revolution. As fascinating to me, so do let me know in the comments what you think below. I'll link to the last video in this series on the screen now, and I'll see you there.